Our species that has prided itself on successful evolution, our brains might have in one way or another devolved. Now, before you throw your punches at me, I meant it in the social context. So as time passes, you might have noticed there are rules upon rules upon rules just as to how we should do things or even talk about things. With the growing accessibility to tools and resources such as social media, a number of situations have escalated to the point where it shouldn't have. Things like contesting science for the wrong reasons and public stunts just for attention. It's all been frustrating to watch these events unfold right at my fingertips. It feels like we, as a society, have not gotten better at this whole using our brains kind of thing. Having an inquisitive mind now feels intrusive rather than part of the human intellect to be curious. Or how critical thinking now seems to be a master's degree rather than just something that can be developed and is crucial for things like battling irresponsible information dissemination. So, why have we continued to sideline these pursuits of intellect? This phenomenon has actually been going on for quite some time in history, and it is now what we call anti-intellectualism, and you might be practicing it. So, hi, I'm Grishel, and welcome to PsyPop. In this series, we'll be tackling how pop culture or something in pop culture has displayed a phenomenon where we can learn from it in the context of psychology and mental health. If you like the series and don't want to miss out on our future episodes, don't forget to show us support by liking and subscribing, and don't forget to click on the bell icon to get a notification whenever we post a new video. Hofstadter defines anti-intellectualism as resentment of the life of the mind and those who are considered to represent it, and a disposition to constantly minimize that value of that life. And as one of our writers say, it's basically flipping the middle finger at education, thinking, and the use of common sense. End quote. To that, I agree too. So from what you can see, this essentially is the dumbing down of human intellect through belittlement and rejection from a collective. So, right now, these things might be a bit confusing. Let's take you down through history to visualize this better. So, way back in the past, you're probably familiar with, propaganda or the spread of biased or false information for the sake of promoting a political agenda, which, has probably been around since politics has been around. However, when people usually see that word, they think of the I want yous and other infamous posters from the time of the World Wars. So, Hitler. If there was anything or anyone out there who has been the master of misinformation, apart from he who shall not be named, that funny Austrian man who didn't get into art school, you know who I'm talking about, is certainly one of them. In his fiery and engaging speeches, rallies, and campaigns, he was able to spread myths about their life and times that people who were desperate for survival could easily cling on to. And even now, anti-intellectualism again has been happening right before our eyes. And I would honestly say that it's only gotten worse since then. It's become a phenomenon present globally across people. So you can see these probably from anti-vaccine enthusiasts or anti-maskers. And before the pandemic, there were people or even groups of people revolting against how global warming doesn't exist or how climate change isn't real. Again, it's happening right in front of our eyes, and it's something that they still deny. So, as what I said a while ago, how people contest science for the wrong reasons. They're basically saying that science is wrong and unproven. From what we can see in this quick look back, when people believe so strongly in something, they tend to be loyal to that belief or idea. Also known as confirmation bias, where people tend to favor information that confirms their beliefs. And these beliefs range from thinking that your crush likes you back just because you made eye contact a few times and then you fixate yourself on them for years on end, and to something larger like religious beliefs in your community, such as atheism versus Catholicism. That's a bit extreme, but it's not entirely wrong to stand up for your most cherished beliefs. But at the same time, they prompt us to act and think irrationally, more so when it comes to being shared amongst the community. With the whole world watching your every move, it's easy to succumb to the drowning noises of every little opinion and every little argument that we come across to avoid anyone's wrath. And so oftentimes when these beliefs are presented to the world, they can either serve as enlightenment to one but nightmare fuel for another. These opposing responses to our very cherished beliefs come from the very human quality to avoid things that will change or interrupt behavior that we've already become accustomed to. In simpler terms, our fight or flight response happens somewhat simultaneously. So it's to bite back and to run away from change. It is this exact mindset that fuels anti-intellectualism, this auto-rejection of the unfamiliar and at times uncomfortable truth. And so as a collective, it then becomes the public's defense mechanism, which you'll frequently notice in social media posts littered with comments containing these phrases like, okay nerd, or what a know-it-all, or edi wow, or edi ikaw na. So in the Philippines, we have the term edi ikaw na, which basically just means you're smart and I'm not, but it's also insulting for you for being the smart one, being a know-it-all. Quite simply, people hate being wrong. This is something similar to the symptoms of an inferiority complex, wherein one has feelings of inadequacy and insecurity. People hate being looked down upon and will try whatever means to bring themselves back up until they feel like the superior once again. Again, anti-intellectualism is not new. We've covered how it goes centuries back, but how about years back? And I'm talking about developmental years. Children and teenagers show anti-intellectualism attitudes more frequently to their fellow peers. Social exclusion is one thing, but picking on peers who are smart or smarter than them has become commonplace to the point that sometimes kids hide their smarts because they would feel alienated otherwise. As we get older, our experiences and beliefs accumulate. Going beyond this childish banter comes straight up immaturity from adults who pack immeasurable amounts of pride, refusing to admit to most things because, well, they're supposed to be the adult in that conversation and they should know stuff. And so where exactly do we find these people? You can say Twitter. Okay, so Twitter isn't exactly the main source of intellectuals of any age, but it has become the hotspot for sometimes nonsensical debates and live updates ever since a certain billionaire has acquired the platform. So behold, Elon Musk, the name and face recognizable just about anywhere.
Everywhere I go, I see his face.
Once regarded as the next Iron Man, more like a major dumbass. Recently, he's bought Twitter for $44 billion and now is making major changes to the platform that will make it even more prone to the spread of misinformation than it ever was before. And so to explain, Elon Musk plans to make this subscription model starting at $8 a month to offset the excess of dollars he's paid to acquire Twitter. And alright, this becomes a threat to many important figures such as journalists who take part in spreading various credible information. And so this blue check beside their username shows they are the real original person in the profile and also to boost their reach of how many people see their tweets on average. It's proof that you are who you say you are, increases your reach to others, and it's both hard to maintain and to be qualified for. Well, that was the original blueprint. So now requiring only $8 a month, that's pretty damn accessible and a case for making a fool out of the world. With all the opposing arguments circulating the app, the problem really lies on the fact that this credibility check invites virtually anyone who can afford a check to pretend to be anyone on the internet, say anything, and reach a whole lot of people casually using the platform regardless of what they say, their qualifications, or even if they are who they say they are, which is something we've already seen as people made fun of Elon Musk for the idea by pretending to be him and other users pretending to be public figures and making outrageous announcements that's also costed some companies billions of dollars. But if you've been on Twitter for long enough like me, this network of misinformation and mind-altering debates have long been a trademark of the app despite the character count. It's just now that people are given a bigger taste of freedom at a higher ground than they were before, where delegitimizing credible information has become even more rampant. Overall, it's something that continues to escalate the more Elon gets made fun of it. The situation as it stands right now isn't pretty, so expect a lot more trolling in the future and a lot more interesting results in real-time global and local events, such as our elections. So we've looked at it from a global perspective. Why don't we look right back home? Let's circle back on the basic existence of anti-intellectualism through the lens of our two dominant Philippine values. First, we have pakikisama. So the fear of being left out amongst the masses is apparent because of the smart shame culture amongst the Filipinos. At times, most agreed that it's better to pretend you are dumb or the background character than stand out and show your achievements and background. Otherwise, one might have higher chances of alienation. This can also be seen in, when you're in parties or when you're in gatherings with your family. People are talking and you want to correct them, or you do correct them and they say, ang KJ mo, or they just, again, people don't like being wrong, right? So you probably heard a lot of familiar phrases in Filipino pertaining to this, and you can relate it to anti-intellectualism. And second, we have the value of bahala na. So this common saying embodies the Filipino's personality in letting things go on without acting on it. Because by going against the system, whether it may be spreading awareness on fake news or lack of credibility, they are instead shamed and mocked. Rather than being rewarded, the masses view them as mayabang or pangit makikisama. Ignorance is bliss to fit into the status quo. Go figure. And so at this point, we might as well consider smart shaming as part of the Filipino culture. It's seen from how different forms of entertainment tend to joke around people who either have high intellect or are in an impressive profession. Public figures are expected to have expertise and past backgrounds for the background that they're running. However, because of such culture, a common strategy is to hide away their credibilities to fit in with the masses. So let's look at two prominent figures in leading the masses into a trap. We have former President Erap Estrada, who boasted how he got kicked out of school, earning favor from the Filipino masses and viewing him as a likable and relatable person. Weird, right? Now we have Filipinos who love the classic all-rounder candidate who can keep entertaining them, someone who can represent the ordinary people. Enter Mocha Uson, your resident dancer, singer, actress, disinformation queen, and model. Now that's a real jack of trades, huh? Having all these roles doesn't make it difficult to imagine the desire to stay relevant, even through adverse means, spreading misinformation, and being an outright enabler. Sound familiar? So let's piece together the values and influences into the big picture of how prevalent this issue is in the Philippines. In an article by John Neri for Inquirer, his thoughts on what Filipinos had been doing wrong can be summarized into 4 points. First, we have the ingrained and admittedly generational mindset where change is not possible even if other countries with similar conditions have accomplished or overcome their problems. Second is the Filipino Tolerance, a type of fatalism where an individual believes that even if they are aware that there is a problem within the system, nothing can be done or cannot be solved. Hence, they should just tolerate their current hardships. Third, lack of national ambition, which is mostly caused by thinking of themselves as inferior in comparison to other countries, or one believes that living in other countries is better than staying or working in the Philippines. And lastly, Filipinos who take pride that they are suffering more than other countries, even to the point of undermining the sufferings of others. And so keep these 4 points in mind as we dive deeper into how the media that we consume has become increasingly politically polarized from the Duterte administration to the current one and playing a part of the delegitimization of media, a hallmark of anti-intellectualism. Change is coming. Do you remember this catchphrase? It was the rallying cry of former President Rodrigo Duterte's election campaign back in 2016. The tough-talking mayor from Davao was seen as a relatable figure for many Filipinos for his blunt and honestly rude outspokenness. His relationship with the media was, throughout his entire term in office, rocky to say the least. He attacked and dismantled media outlets like ABS-CBN and others that were critics of his presidency, all while accusing him of being false with that ever so annoying term, fake news. This, combined with a rapid rise of the spread of misinformation on social media, particularly Facebook, more or less reduced news and media into a state of limbo in which it was getting harder and harder to find the truth. And so, riding on that fame or the infamy of his name, Ferdinand Marcos Jr. ran for elections on a campaign based on lies and misinformation. This is not to criticize his current tenure as president, but it is undeniable that a major contributor to his election win was basically the rewriting of history before our very eyes. Social media went completely unchecked in how various internet trolls, fanatics, and others spread myths and false information, not just about BBM, but about his father and his presidency, ranging from the believable, if not properly fact-checked, to the outright ridiculous. Add in things like Made in Malacanang, a sweeping under the rug of the real history, or what is now called the New Society instead of the martial law, and you bring about the death of the truth in media. As false information is easily accessible, while finding the truth requires much heavier research, it reaches people's hands much easier and feeds a cycle of anti-intellectualism, as from what you can see, the edi ikaw na. And so how do you avoid getting influenced by the trap of anti-intellectualism or save your brain cells while you still have them? First, stay open-minded. It is said that one's distrust towards intellectuals can either be because of personal negative experience that they had with the quote-unquote experts, such as being undermined due to their lower IQ or lesser accomplishments, or their own inferiority complex, such as deeming the smarter ones as the enemy and as such not trusting them. It is easier said than done to remain open-minded, especially once personal feelings are involved. But in the middle of a crisis, it doesn't hurt to trust the experts once in a while, right? Resources are almost always readily available, and so doing your own unbiased research is a powerful skill. Second, about cancel culture. It may be trendy and it's taking up the internet by storm, but it's not that cool. With the rise of social media, cancel culture has become both a medium to express the need of justice and spread personal hate onto a person or a group. In the eyes of anti-intellectuals, that platform becomes an opportunity to enact revenge on the elites. And honestly speaking, just don't join the canceling trend, especially if there's barely any verified information about the person. Cancel culture may be similar to cult culture, but they're very different in the manner of actions. So first, cult culture focuses on criticizing someone for an event or action that they had done, while cancel culture emphasizes on labeling someone as a villain or a bad person with or without much claims at hand. And so be mindful that these cultures are generally a gray area, but using them for harmful means can lead to bullying and negative influence instead. Rather than jumping the gun, educate yourself first. And third, as we all know, misinformation is the enemy. Research and reevaluate always. As social media grows into popularity, there is a higher vulnerability in being exposed to fake news and information. It comes to the point where misinformation is able to appear similar to verified websites and articles. You've probably seen that in receiving emails or texts from different companies who claim they are who they are again, right? And so this may always take some time, but the best way to not fall victim to these schemes is by always evaluating whether the source is trustworthy or not. Don't just believe in any information, especially just because it's been told by a famous celebrity. They may be confident in what they say, but it doesn't mean that it's 100% factual. Such things fall under fallacies of sorts where arguments may seem logical, but the only thing they have is some influencing power over your logical reason. So after listening to my very bold statements, which I already am very much quickly catching up to Evan's legacy that PsyPoints might just disappear. Don't sue us, please. Fingers crossed. But, aside from that, we can gather a few key things on anti-intellectualism. So first is communication. In a world where everyone is just on fight or flight mode, at the same millisecond upon receiving any information, we're faced off with the hurdle of whether to take the reasonable argument or to be sensitive. Either way, it puts a great amount of restrictions on topics that can be talked about or even taught in schools, which may only further perpetuate the ripples of anti-intellectualism. And second is the decline of critical skills. Never has fitting in with the status quo been rampant more than now. The world is facing big changes in terms of power. Things like who is right, what is just, who are we to follow? And this honestly makes us more susceptible to being blind consumers and followers than we think. When was the last time you did a hard fact check? The last time you were aware of what you were consuming? The reels, the number of headlines, news articles that we see in our feed. Can you tell me those things in detail? Did you ever suspect that anything was wrong with those headlines or the information that was being circulated around those different platforms of social media? But overall, this video really isn't to tell you to be super hyperactive on social media and to pick apart your brains after every little piece of information. The internet and life lately has been greatly overwhelming, and now we just want to laugh at something. I'll give us that. But the world can only take so much right now, and this video provides the first few steps into digging deeper into what the hell has been happening in the past few years that has led to the sudden boom with the negativity and hate towards the human pursuit of intellect. And we hope to have provided you with some clarity on things as they stand. When faced with the uncomfortable truth, look inward and ask, what is it that makes me feel not in control of the facts at hand right now? Continue to pursue that, educate, and don't be afraid to be wrong in some stuff. It happens to the best of us. But now you have the ability and the resources to combat anti-intellectualism happening within and around you. Invite dialogue over debate in your circles. It's time we face the undesirable truth and lay down history on the table to move forward. And that's anti-intellectualism in a nutshell. So you reached the end, congratulations. Comment any topic you would like us to tackle next. Don't forget to like and subscribe wherever the button will go in this video. Thank you for watching and see you in the next episode of PsyPop. Have a great day!